Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Now, I don't know about you, Anne-Marie, but this feels a little bit like deja vu all over again.
But with a better connection.
A much better connection, yes. We tried to have Kelly on once before, and the internet gods were saying, no, not this time, not going to happen here. So we're pretty convinced we got a good connection today. So this is going to be a fun conversation to catch up on the stuff that we couldn't hear the previous time, right? So how are you doing, my friend? How are things over there in the UK?
Things are lovely. We had that yellow strange thing in the sky today, which was quite nice. It was called the sun. We don't see it often. We've seen nothing but rain. But yeah, everything's very good. Thank you, Walt.
That's fabulous. I love it. Yeah, this is the time of year when we get lots of rain around here too. So I get it. I mean, it's kind of our moment around here. But yeah. Anyway, Kelly and I were chatting before we got started and found out that we actually live fairly close to each other. We're relatively short.
Really?
So that's kind of nice. But we're going to learn a whole lot more about her now. Kelly Collins was on, how far back? It was like a week or two, three weeks back, something like that. I don't remember exactly when it was.
Yeah.
And we were starting to get to know you, and then the communications just fell apart. So we're going to treat it as if this were a brand new experience. Like, Kelly, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you very much.
So give us what we tried to get before, but we really couldn't get well because it wasn't working well. So give us like the biography. Tell us your brief story so we can have the starting point.
All righty. Well, I have three wonderful children. I'm super proud of them. And that's been the best job I ever had. But I had this huge life change back in 2017. I'd been married for 30 years. My three kids were taken off for college or gone, and then found out I was getting a divorce and had to sell my business so it wouldn't get caught up in the divorce. So I had this huge trifecta in 2017 of all these life changes. And so when I sold the company and worked for that new owner for 3 years, and then I retired early and traveled the world for a year. And while I was traveling, kind of reflecting, having a gratitude practice, really giving thanks for all of the people who helped me recover from the divorce. And that gratitude turned into a book called The Swipe Right Effect. And it's really a pay it forward, sharing all the advice and amazing things that people gave me, mostly love, hugs, and advice.
I love that. And as Anne-Marie knows, that's actually near and dear to my heart because I just went through a divorce and I know what it's like to have that level of support from the people you're closest to. I certainly got it from some of my best co-host friends here on the show, including Anne-Marie, and it's invaluable. So the fact that you turned that into a book, like, whoa, okay, I'm a little bit behind the curve here. I got to catch up a bit.
I'm just a few years ahead of you. You can
okay.
start.
But that's fabulous, though. I love that you took let's be honest. Anytime that you go through a major change of that, plus the business, I mean, I get that because I had like 4 or 5 things that were all kind of falling apart at the same time too. There's a law of attraction thing there that I can't quite explain, but when things fall apart, they fall apart. It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
When you're coming through that, it's a challenge, and yet you came through it fairly well, it sounds like. I mean, I know you had the business. I think you were a publisher, weren't you? You were publishing like a local publication and then
right.
Had to go, like you said. And I don't know. Just from the way you're saying it, it kind of sounds to me like letting go of it was not as bad as you might have thought it would have been.
It was really, as hard as it was the best thing that could have happened because I worked so hard in that business. And once somebody else owned it, I could step back and not have to do that. I could still, create within the business. I could still grow new sites because we got up to 10 different websites. And, so we're eventually a website is a newspaper. So it's all online news. And I was able to take a step back and work on myself. Whereas 70 hours a week before, there really wasn't a lot of time to do that. So, and I took, before I sold it, I went on a hike called the Camino de Santiago, and it was a 500-mile hike in Spain. And it was on that hike when I was trying to make these decisions, figure out who I want to be in the future, because the old me is gone and the new me's got to figure this out. And that was the beginning really of my healing, because I made the decision. I'd already filed for divorce, but I made the decision to sell the business. But it was also a nice runway for me, because they wanted me to stay for a minimum of 3 years. And so I had this timeline that I could look at and say, I know I have to be here. And I wasn't super happy about it, because it was kind of like a new version of my old life. But having recognized that, I was able to start looking ahead. Okay, in 3 years, where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? Who do I want to be with? Who do I not want to be with? So, it was a great runway, and it was really helpful.
Oh, is Walt frozen?
I think he might be.
Oh, he's gone. He's just disappeared into the universe right there.
Oh, no.
I mean, that sounds an amazing story. It sounds like you've almost got the gift of you in this whole process.
Yeah, definitely. And while I was traveling last year on my sabbatical, that was kind of, was seeing how happy I had become, and just in all the different ways that I had to walk through all the hard things, all the hard stuff. And that, there's so many different sayings, but it's just, it really was better on the other side once I got through it all.
Mm.
So I actually made it back here. I was actually dropped out for a bit. I think you guys figured that part out.
Yes.
But, all of a sudden I said, wait a minute. I thought the technology issues were over here. What's going on?
It was quite fun. Yeah. Oh gosh. It was quite funny, Walt, because 1 minute you were there frozen, and the next minute you just disappeared, and it was just the universe. And it was just like, boom, you've gone. It was like quite effective.
Now you see me, now you don't.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it was.
Actually, I went off to do a little thing that I think will probably cure that issue, so it won't happen again. But yeah, sorry if I spooked you.
We're just glad you're back.
I'm glad I'm back too. That's the best part. So, okay, well, you gave us the little pot of biography, so to speak, and you've been through some interesting stuff, and it did lead you to decide that you wanted to be helping other people, to the point where you recently launched a podcast, and you're getting ready to start a coaching business, which, I mean, it's not like all the changes happened then. They're still going on.
That is true. Yeah, I did not foresee the coaching business at all. But what has evolved out of the book is people were coming to me saying, your book woke something up inside of me. You're saying things that I was always afraid to say, because I'm brutally honest in the book about my pain and how hard it was and things that happened. And, I'm honest, and trying to provide solutions. So people started coming to me, contacting me through Facebook Messenger, contacting me through LinkedIn, approaching me at a book signing, and they're saying, I need to talk. And my friend Karen, God bless her, she just said, Kelly, you've got to turn this into something so they can find you. Like, there's got to be a way for them to talk to you. And she said, do a retreat so that people can come together and talk about this. And so that turned into, well, they don't want to wait till September to talk. So I went to school. I went to school and learned how to be a coach for transition. I used to be a coach for other publishers. We had a successful business. People wanted to understand how we ran it. What did it take? And how can I build my media kit? How do I build my sales team? So I've done coaching before. It's actually feels really natural to turn and take this other creation and turn it into something that can help people.
That's very cool. I like that. It's also interesting too how when we are on our paths, things come to us that we don't expect. That's one of the first things that you said. You didn't really expect that. You hadn't really
Yeah.
thought about becoming a coach, and all of a sudden you're becoming a coach. What if you could kind of like summarize what was it, the impetus that made these people reach out to you? What was the thing that you were offering them that they weren't getting in their own lives or not getting elsewhere?
They are feeling stuck. And, you know, when you go through a big life change and you isolate, it's just so hard to make any forward progress. You need to open up to other people. You need to be able to talk about it. You need to share. And, you know, I know it feels like you're being incredibly vulnerable because you are.
Because you are, yeah.
But it's one of the most courageous things you can do. And it's really the best way to move forward is to talk to somebody, to get it all out. And my friend, Kay Harvey says, grief is like water. The more you spread it around, the more it evaporates. And that's, you know, when you're going through a big life change because of a divorce, the loss of a spouse, a loss of a child, you know, there's so many reasons that you might get stuck. That's what she means by, you know, spreading it around is talking about it. And that's about the only way to let it go.
But I'm sure you showing that vulnerability, you showing that is what other people are relating to, and the fact that they know you've worked through that. So your proof and your evidence is in how you are now and how
That's
hard
true.
you've worked.
Right. Yeah. And I did work really hard to get this happy. I mean, I know how lucky I am because I know how bad it hurt before. And
Yeah.
I just have this incredible energy, vibration, you know, heart chakra, whatever you want to call it. I just feel it all the time. And I want other people to feel this way. And I don't want it to take them 4 years. Let's work together and let's fast track this. You know, I've just pulled together all these different practices. I call them empowerment practices. And I've just pulled them all together. It's all these things that worked for me, you know, and they're called practices because you have to keep doing them. You know, it's not something, you know, meditation is a practice. Yoga is a practice. So is healing. There's a lot of things you have to do, but you have to do them more than once.
Yeah, the practice part can be a bit of a challenge because, I'm not done yet. I got to keep doing this.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Like, okay, that's what I have to wrap my head around. I'm going to be doing this regularly, ongoing.
Mm-hmm. And that's how forgiveness works. You know, I always say, you know, you have the anger and you have the forgiveness, and boy, they work together really nicely to keep you held down and not flourishing and not happy. And, you know, I used to say anger, and it's kind of a quote from the book, but anger is like a high school bully. It just keeps coming back around and coming back around. It's a boomerang. It's a law of attraction. And, you know, it's like, it's going to keep coming around. And instead of your lunch money, it wants your happiness. So the sooner you walk through that anger and the sooner you walk through forgiveness and keep practicing until it's done, then, you know, the happier you'll be. There's your fast track, you know, let go of the anger, let go and forgive, whether that's yourself or someone else or both.
Interesting too that you use the word unstuck or being stuck. And we usually associate that with some kind of external situation. So I'm stuck because of, you know, I got divorced. I'm stuck because I can't meet anybody new. I'm stuck because my career changed. I'm stuck because, but it really isn't about the external stuff, is it?
No, it's definitely internal. And I mean, if you think about being stuck and there's an immovable object, you know, and you're stuck in your car or your car is stuck in the mud, there's something physical that's holding it there. And when you're stuck internally, mentally, emotionally, you are actually the one providing the block. There's no mud. There's no car. It's internal, and you have to do the work to get unstuck. And you do that by doing one thing, and that is making a choice. Everybody has the power to make a choice. And if you don't make the choice to do just that first thing, because once you do the first thing, the second thing's going to be easier. And the third thing's going to be easier. And there's going to be multiple steps and there's going to be multiple layers. But you have to make that first choice to be happy, to do something to get happy.
I don't know about you. I know for myself, in the answer to the question of how do I take that first step, the initial response I had was, I don't know what direction to go in. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the answers are here. So how can I know which direction is the right first step? And so I just took a step because I didn't know what else to do because I didn't know where to go.
Exactly.
I want to do something here, talking to good friends like Anne Marie here helped me to take that step, but kind of have to just blind step and not even know what's going to happen.
Right. And talking to someone is a first step. I mean, that's probably the best first step, whether that's a counselor, a minister, a best friend. I would even say strangers. I talked to complete strangers on the Camino, and it was probably the best therapy I ever had. They were not emotionally invested in anything, not me, my ex, my kids, my family. They weren't emotionally invested, so they could just listen. They didn't have to save me. They didn't have to fix me. They didn't have to do anything except listen. And then I reciprocated, and I was the complete stranger that they could confide in. It was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had, because people who are on that trail, they're all there for a question. You don't walk 500 miles just for the heck of it. You're there to do something, to fix something, to answer a question, whatever it is. And so you just innately trust each other because you're all there for something, and you help each other get there.
Walt, have you read that book I sent you?
I'm about halfway through it. This is a book by a listener who's also been on the show named Deborah Wilson, who has also, like you, walked the Camino, and her whole deal was how she had a breakup while she was doing the walk of the Camino. I mean, it was a crazy story, but really a tremendously powerful experience that she went through.
I've seen her on Facebook, and she's in some of the Camino groups that I'm on Facebook. So I recognized her name because of the conversation I had with you about it. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole and followed her, and I just think it's great. Yeah, she's been on some podcasts that I follow, Camino podcasts. Mm-hmm.
So, but her experience is very much like yours. It sounds like a very magical place that everybody is there supporting each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is incredible.
It's just what you say is exactly what she says. It just made me love it.
Yeah.
I want to go.
Yeah. Everyone should go.
Yeah.
I always say that if somebody asks me, will you tell me about the Camino? And I said, just so we're clear, I will be trying to talk you into going. we don't talk about it without me trying to talk you into going. So.
Hey, Walt, is that where we should meet? We should meet in Spain.
Yes.
That's a good
Portugal.
Portugal, yeah.
I did Portugal last year, and it was fabulous too. But that Camino Francés, the French way, is the Mac Daddy. That's the one you gotta go.
Do you think that Camino experience has led you to believe that you're actually going to find it easier to talk to a stranger about something going on than someone who's a friend? Because, I mean, the way you're talking about it sounds like that for you was the better way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky that I had friends I could talk to. I mean, definitely. I was very lucky and very supported. But it was also freeing to be like, they only know me standing next to them. They don't know my past. They don't know I'm a business owner. They don't know I have 3 kids. They don't know any of that. They just know Kelly standing in front of them, and that she's got pain in her eyes, and that they want to be there for me. That's all we know about each other. Right. And so it's also, they don't throw advice at you unless you ask. I think that was really my first experience with holding space for someone, like really understanding that it's best to not insert yourself. Oh, I know how you feel. Oh, I get that. That happened to me one time. When someone's sharing with you, if you keep inserting yourself into their story, it starts breaking up the communication. I didn't understand that. I always wanted to be empathetic, sympathetic, and insert myself so that they knew I cared, when in all actuality, what really is better and more caring is to take a step back and just listen. And then if they ask for help or they want your opinion, then you give it. And I had to, shout out to my friend Karen. She did try to teach me that, but I had to go to the Camino to actually understand it.
But how great you got to understand it, because a lot of people don't always, do they?
No. Yeah. I mean,
I think it's going to serve you well too in terms of being a podcast host too, because if you start having guests on, what you described is the tightrope you have to walk as a host. I mean, on the one hand, you have to kind of keep the conversation going. On the other hand, you have to shut up. It's a tough line.
That's hard. My family, we like to talk.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. It is, and I'm coming from the news business. I do understand the shut up and listen and silence creates answers and all of those good things, and I love one of my reporters taught me to ask at the very end. So, what have I not asked about that you really want me to know? And I love that question.
Good question.
Yeah. It serves me well. I use it on dates.
Whoa. Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now I got to ask, how does that work out when you use that on a date? I mean,
Oh, they always laugh. It's pretty funny.
oh, okay. Well, that's awesome.
They were like, "Oh, did this turn into an interview?" Yeah, no. Oh, it's been an interview. You just know. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's an icebreaker, and it's kind of a nice way to, I mean, and on a date, I don't do it at the end of the date. It's just kind of as we're talking, I'll throw it in there. But I think it's really important if you think about the impetus behind the question is, what do you want me to know about you? Is actually a great thing to say in any situation.
True.
What do you think I need to know about you? Whether it's a date or a friendship or meeting somebody at a coffee shop, whatever. It's, you can see their heart with their answer.
And you can also learn more about what's important to them, what they're valuing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good point. Good, Walt. I like that. I like that.
10 years of podcasting practice helped me to ask that.
Learning from a master.
For sure.
So you're becoming a coach and you got this podcast. By the way, how many episodes of the podcast have you done so far? I know you just started, but.
Yeah, I've recorded 4 and I just put the first one out last week, and Wednesday I'll put out the second one. And that is with my friend Karen, actually, that I mentioned earlier. So I'm excited for that one to run. She's one of the people in my book, that I interview. So I didn't really tell you that part about the book, but every chapter I interview a friend and we talk about the piece of advice that they gave me. And then they tell the readers how they learned the advice. So you hear my story, but you also hear their story. So it's kind of like 11 mini memoirs, but
I love that.
of big life change. And so, yeah, the interview thing has just, since 2020 has really just kind of been a part of my life. We had to do everything over Zoom and, starting in 2020. So it just kept going, and it was so comfortable for me because we did all of that. And we did Facebook Lives and, we did all kinds of things in the news business that were new to us. And it just became a natural part of my book production process as well. And my friends, but you will never know who the friends are because everybody's anonymous in the book except me. So, and that was so that they could share their deeply personal stories without risking any relationships or hurting their kids or any of that. But they do all have country music star names since I'm from Nashville. So we hear from Dolly and Loretta and Shania. Yeah, that's pretty funny. They all chose their own names too. So
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. My friend who is Dolly in the book, she gave me a little keychain that says, "What would Dolly do?"
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you can find those in Nashville pretty easily.
I'm sure, yeah, but still, that's
She
fine.
even gave me a T-shirt that said that too. So funny. So we all love Dolly.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like required. If you live in Tennessee, it's like, there is one music scene. That's it. You got it right there.
Yeah. She's pretty cool. She's just a good person.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of reasons to like her.
All right. So I want to go back to, what you've been doing first of all, the reason I mentioned, how many episodes of the podcast you've done, I want to kind of take the moment to not just congratulate you, but to kind of put it out to the world. Doing those first few episodes is critically important if you've ever wanted to do a podcast, because it's so easy to not do them. It's so easy to kind of say, well, it's too complex. I don't have the technology down. I haven't figured out where to get my mic. I haven't figured all this stuff out. And you did it. I don't even know how much, you may not even have put anything into, what am I going to do for technology? You may have done it the way I like to recommend doing it, is you do it into your phone and you record it to see if you like doing it. I don't know how you, but the point is you did it. You got the first few done. You've got the first one published. The second one's coming out. Congratulations. You broke through what 90% of the people stopped.
Yeah, I'm kind of a doer. I used to drive my former business partner crazy because I have an idea. Let's go. And she would just be sitting there going, uh-huh. I am not risk averse. There are things I am averse to, but risk is not one of them. I love trying new things. I love creating products. I love creating things that make a difference in people's lives. That's why the news industry was so cool for me. I know this news is, teaching the citizens of this city about what's going on in their city commission meetings. And I know that this, covering this nonprofit is going to help them get more recognition in the community, and people will want to help them, so it's just kind of a natural thing that I wanted to do with my book. I want my book to help people. I want to tell them the story because that's how I communicate best. I'm a storyteller. But then I also want to give them, this is the empowerment practice that helped me, and this is why it helped me, and this is how I did it. And I'll even say, I did this, and my life coach taught me this, and I read this book by Catherine Woodward Thomas, and she taught me this. I watched Brene Brown's Call to Courage, and she taught me this. So it was, it was a community group effort to get Kelly all better. but I think the sharing and the storytelling is big for me, and the podcast is an extension of that.
Well, also being risk averse too. Not being risk averse, I mean. In fact, that actually raises a really good question. Here, we're going to give you a chance to show off your coaching chops here for a second. But why is it you think that you are not risk averse, but so many other people are? Where's the difference in there?
Good question.
Well, good question. Great question, actually. I think it is probably a part of being an extrovert. And confident. I think my parents raised me, especially my mom. She raised me to be a confident woman. She gave me a great example. My mom and my dad were both entrepreneurs. My mom, especially, she was, I better not say that word. She was the bomb. And, in the commercial real estate industry in Nashville, she was one of the first women to break through. And so I had a great example, and I'm her daughter, so I should be confident too. And I can be an entrepreneur. I can build things. And I think it's probably partially how I was raised, that I had a great example. And it really wasn't until I started failing, I'd make a decision and it would fail, with the business. I'd try to do a special insert for the newspaper and nobody would buy it. Okay. I tried it. And, and it was just okay, what do I learn from that? Well, I was smart. I had a business coach. She told me what I had to learn from that. So I believe in coaching. I had even when I retired and I did the year sabbatical, I had a coach that whole year. I wanted to be held accountable, which I think is the most important thing a coach can do for you. And I wanted to keep going forward in my life and not just retire. I wanted to be on a journey to heal, to get happy, and to figure out who and where I wanted to be. And so, she was absolutely instrumental in me getting to where I am right now. And I need to call her and thank her. Thank you, Sasha. I don't know. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Well, yeah. Well, it leads to a follow-up, actually, because I think you've identified two themes that have popped up on numerous occasions when I've interviewed other people who have been successful in business or just talked to them privately. trying to find out, where the common denominators are. What is it that makes somebody not be risk averse? Not what makes it possible for somebody to take the steps they need to take in order to give it a shot and all that kind of thing. And the two factors you mentioned that I think they're not true of everybody who's successful as an entrepreneur, but they are common, is one, having a model, like you described your mom was your model, somebody to emulate. And number two, having a coach. Those two come up more often than anything else I can think of in interviews that I've done with people who've been successful.
Yeah. And I think the first question I would ask if I was thinking about, well, I just did hire a coach. When I am hiring a coach, I want to know that they have a coach. What are you doing to improve yourself? How often have you had a coach? What kind of coaches have you had? Because I think it's important for me that I'm trying to improve myself. I want to know that I'm working with someone who's also continually working to improve themselves. I'm actually working with two coaches right now. A coaching business coach and a publishing coach, because it's two totally different worlds and I need them to work together. It's, there's plenty of people out there like Brene Brown that she's doing it all. She's on every platform you could, just put it in. You can find her everywhere. And, I think that, it was important for me to kind of be working both sides of my business and also developing both sides of me on, learning how to do this new business full time, which I've done lots of coaching, but not full time. And then also how to be an author and tell my story the best way.
And you mentioned the accountability factor. Certainly that's one that everybody mentions whenever they talk about how important it is to have a coach. But that can't be the only reason to have a coach. Why?
No.
What are the other reasons? What is the thing that really makes it worthwhile to have a coach, or more than one coach in your case?
Well, I think it's important to hire somebody who's been where you want to go. I think that's I think whether you're a coach or you're, an entrepreneur, even if you're a CEO of a big corporation, if you are mentored or coached by somebody who's been where you want to go, they know the missteps you can make. They can help you prevent missteps. They can also help you learn from missteps. Mm-hmm. And because they've either done it themselves or, or were able to not make that mistake because somebody taught them, So I think that's important. And, look at, and I think, that's why I want to do this coaching. I've been there. I know how to get out of it. I want to take the person who needs that help them get out of it. And so you want to find the heart of the coach as well, that, that they're not doing this to make $1 zillion. They're doing this because they want to help people, and it's within them. It's their passion. It's their life purpose. This is my life purpose.
It makes your boat go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think we can see that just by looking at your face as you're saying that.
Yeah. I want everybody to feel this good. It's amazing. And I don't know if I would have ever felt this good had those bad things not happened to me.
There's a third factor that shows up. Now, this shows up with almost everybody I've ever interviewed who's not only an entrepreneur, but they're entrepreneuring in the coaching space. I don't think there's been an exception, actually. I think this is probably close to 100%. They're all doing it because they feel like they've discovered something amazing and they want to share it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't keep it to yourself, for sure. Why would you?
Yeah.
Because you want to be giving back. You want to surround yourself with people who feel as good as you do, right? You don't want to be this good and feeling great and you're hanging out with a bunch of people who are sad and feel bad. So if they're sad and feel bad, I want to help them not feel that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's like if you knew the secret to making $1 million, surely you would want to share that so that people could also have wealth and, not live in poverty. I don't know. I wish there was a secret to becoming. I wish I knew that secret, but.
It was moved by that name, and it actually told you how to do it. But I get
it. Right. Or we could just do the law of attraction. That's the answer.
Well, the law of attraction is basically focus on what you were just describing. You'll get more of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much
that's the secret. Literally the secret.
Yeah. Something else that comes to my mind, and I'm curious to know what your take is on it. You didn't actually mention it as one of your factors for why you have decided to get into coaching and why you're loving the idea of working with people and so forth. But I think this is one of those things that kind of comes out after working with a lot of clients. It becomes clear, I think, to most coaches that there are certain things that crop up over and over and over again with all of the clients they're working with. And if I were to summarize them, it all kind of comes down to one thing. Yeah, as a coach, I'm going to try to help you avoid the missteps. I'm going to try to help you stay motivated. I'm going to hold you accountable and so forth. But there are going to be sometimes you're going to take a misstep despite my best effort, or maybe in an area that I've never been in before. Now, how are you going to handle it? That's really, from the stories that I've heard from most coaches, that's where they make their biggest impact, helping their figure out, how do I navigate now that I've had this really bad result that I didn't know about?
Right. And I think it's twofold, really. You want to deal with what happened, and you walk through the steps of that. I think the most important part after that, the most important thing you can do is have a vision for yourself. You can't, have you defined your life purpose? And I have an exercise that I absolutely love. It's a resume of your life, not business, a resume of all the things I did to help the world, things that made me feel gratified, made me feel like I was making a difference in the world, and really looking at your life purpose. And from there, that point, this is what I'm here on this earth to do. What is my vision for myself? And so that's, to me, that's the most exciting thing. And when someone's stuck, they cannot see their life purpose. They cannot see the future. They are just going inward over and over again, boomeranging with either self-hate or anger, lack of forgiveness. There's just pain. For me, people would say, you're angry. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just hurting. I am in pain from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. I hurt. And I didn't know how to let it go, but I learned. And the law of attraction is really what helped me. My friend Loretta in the book explained to me about how my pain was just going to keep boomeranging around until I learned to remove the bad energy and replace it with the good.
And it worked.
It was a powerful conversation that I had with her. Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget it. I could close my eyes and be walking down that road with her right now, because it was just such a life-changing moment.
The light bulb came on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it was really fast track after that. Unfortunately, it was like 3.5, 4 years before that conversation, and I kept thinking I was there, and I kept thinking I was there. And then it would just be like, oh man, this still hurts. Oh man, this still hurts. And, but I kept trying. That's the important thing. I did keep taking a step forward, but yeah, she made all the difference in my world.
And maybe that was the time you needed to hear it, because if you'd heard it 2 years before, it may not have resonated.
Right. You're right. And I think I was ready. I had been doing the traveling. I had been out there solo and had a lot of time hiking and otherwise to, spend time thinking about it. And I just didn't realize I was doing it to myself. It was a huge awakening. And I listened to, I had like an 18-hour drive, and she was at the midpoint. And from that point, she said, I'm going to get you an Audible book, and I want you to listen to it in the car. You've got 6 hours. You'll be done with the book. And if you will just trust me. And I said, I do trust you. I love you. I trust you. And she told me to download The Secret on Audible. Well, I went to do that, and it was already on my phone. I had already downloaded it and not listened to it. I have no idea how long it had been on there, and she had given me the book a decade before, and yeah. Hello. So you're right, Anne Marie. You're absolutely right. I heard it when I was ready. But that book gave me 12 words, and I talk about this a lot in my book, and otherwise. It gave me the 12 words I needed to practice to let go of the anger and really forgive, really let go of what my husband did, really let go of my anger towards myself for having stayed for too long. And, you know, and it's, I forgive you. I release you. I want you to be happy. And I got the opportunity about 6 weeks after all of that to actually say that to my ex. And that was powerful. And then it wasn't too long after that, a couple of months, I realized I needed to say it to myself. I was still beating myself up for having stayed, for having put up with being unloved. And that's probably the most powerful chapter in the book for me, is the forgiveness chapter, because there's a lot of punches packed in there with good wisdom that people taught me.
Yeah. Well, that you also picked up yourself that you learned. I mean, that's really what your book was about. It's what you learned and you wanted to share with other people. And that was the one that had the biggest impact for you.
Yeah, it absolutely is life-changing to be able to say those 12 words and mean them.
Yeah. It's interesting too how we, as humans, this is a theme that we hit upon a lot here on the show. As humans, we end up in a lot of situations where we're stuck, or we feel stuck, or we feel like we can't really make the movement we want to make, and we know it. We can tell we're stuck, and we try things, and we still can't get unstuck. So when you mentioned your resume process, I kind of perked my ears up, because whenever I hear of an idea, okay, here's a way to get unstuck, I'm always kind of like making notes. Okay, here's another one. You know, one more for, you know, number 465 on the list of different ways to unstuck yourself. But talk about the resume method, because that's an interesting idea. I'm just kind of curious to know how it works.
Yeah, I call it the life purpose resume. And so, for example, you know how you do it in bullets and outlines on a resume? You kind of say, this is my job and this is what I did. So of course, that's your first thing that you write down. And then I challenge them to write 3 to 5 bullet points about that. So I raised 3 amazing daughters who are funny and full of life and more smart than I will ever be. And then under those bullets is like, I was at every soccer game and it made a difference. I was there for my children whenever they needed me, and I still am. I pushed them when they needed pushing, but I did it in a loving way. You know, and then, you know, another example, like I worked with nonprofit boards and I helped make a difference in, specifically one that was Davis House Child Advocacy Center. I helped them raise money and the money helped provide therapy for abused children. I worked on a marketing plan that brought awareness and corporate dollars in, which helped abused children, you know, and so, these are the things that I did outside of work that fed me and made me feel like I made a difference. And, if you start looking at those things, moments where you were proud of yourself, moments where people came up to you and said, you did a good thing, you are going to find your life purpose. Just start writing down the things that made you happy, the times in your life when you were happy, and what about those things made you happy. And it's just life changing. I just made it up. I literally made this up. It was something I did for myself. And I ended up sharing it with my life coach. And then she helped me turn that into a different way of doing a vision board. And so I love what she did with me. And now I'm trying to provide a completely different way to do a vision board for my clients. But it's about tapping into your creativity. We all are creative in different ways. We all are, like, writing is my jam. Like, that is how I'm not going to cut up magazines and glue things onto a poster board. That's not me. I'm not a visual person. And that was another thing I learned about The Secret. I'm an auditory learner. I learned a lot better by listening to it on Audible. So we all have different ways that we learn. We all have different ways that we express ourselves. And so that's what I want to help my clients do, is tap into their own creative nature and their own life purpose, resume, whatever, but figure out the life purpose and then create your vision and do it in a creative way that if you do something like that, it's going to stick with you. It's going to stick hard. And that's what they want in internet marketing, right? Stickiness. Well, I want stickiness for my clients. I want them to have that vision and just let it carry them forward into their new life, because the new life is so cool. It's so fun.
I got two things I need to touch on here because I'm loving them both a great deal. First of all, the idea that your resume process, in my mind, now this is the way I'm hearing it, but it may resonate a little bit differently for you. In my mind, I'm hearing it as an opportunity to apply for the job of being who you love to be.
I love that. Can I steal that? I'm finishing my workbook. I can go back and add that real quick. No, but you're right. You're right. I love that. Walt, you're a smart man.
Well, I'm just taking, you're the smart one here. I'm just taking what you said and I'm formulating it into a little, cute little phrase, but you're the one who came up with this. This is good. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because we're so good at not giving ourselves credit for what we do. So we're skipping over, I did this, I did that, but I'm not egotistical. I'm not, I'm very humble. So I'm not going to even give myself credit for any of that stuff.
Yeah. I think the last line of that chapter in my book is, even the smallest things are worth your recognition. Yeah. Even the smallest things you've done made a difference in somebody's life, or even if it was just your life, but if you were happy and you were feeling jazzed and juiced up, write that down.
That's really good. And I was going to tell you what the second thing was, and I can't remember what it is now because I'm so.
I was getting ready to ask you. And what was the second thing, Walt?
Give me a few minutes, it'll come back. It just means that the universe says, no, you got this other thing you have to ask about first, so let's go there, and it'll take you at some point. That personal recognition is so critical. I also love how you take that personal recognition and you turn it into an opportunity to not only recognize, but to feel good about it.
Yeah.
Because we do, as humans, we have this tendency to know that we did certain things, but not allow ourselves to feel good about it. I'm still not sure why I do that. I mean, Emery, I don't know about you, but I'm not quite sure why I don't allow myself. I'm getting better. Certainly doing the show has helped me to do that.
Yeah. There
are times it's like, it's almost as if there's a piece of me that says, no, you're not hurting enough. Come on. You gotta hurt a little bit more here. You gotta feel the pain.
Yeah. Pain is going to make it better.
But I also think there's a lot of, if you're celebrating yourself and like, yay, look, I've done this. It's amazing. I'm really proud of myself. People think you're full of yourself, and people just can get quite nasty, not nasty, but negative about it. So I think that can put people off, but we absolutely should be celebrating every little win and being really proud. I high five myself all the time.
Yeah. It's almost like, olé. Yeah, I think, I love that.
Because it makes us feel better, because if we're boosting ourselves and making ourselves proud of all these little moments, then we're more likely to have more of these little moments.
Yeah, that there was law of attraction again. I mean, if you just think about like how you're writing down all these things and how good they felt, you're going to feel that again. That memory in your subconscious is going to boom, just like pain gets triggered, and that comes out. So does happiness. So let's focus on the happiness. Let's focus on times in your life when you were happy, so that we can create more of those. That's what we want. We want to be happy.
And how many situations do people just focus on the negative thing about it, not all the good things that they've done around it? So just literally refocusing the mind onto those, what did I love? What did I do well? Just makes a massive difference.
Yeah. When I was able to add my marriage to the life purpose resume, I was like, oh, look at me. I'm finally getting there. I was like, look at all the great things we did. We have 3 amazing children. We got them through college. They all have graduate degrees. I started a business. He had a successful career. We did that by supporting each other. And I can see that now. I can say that now without hurting, and so I can look back at the marriage and think we did good things, and I'm proud of that. Yes, it ended badly, but I can't discount the 25 years that we were honestly happy and joyful and loving our lives together.
I think that's actually the point. You could discount it but you're deciding, no, I'm not going to discount it. That's where
I'm going to be proud of myself. I was married for 30 years. I was a good wife. I was a good mother. I still am a good mother. Oh, wait. Ole!
We'll high five each other now.
So yeah. Anyway, I just want everybody to be happy. Can we just make that happen? Can we manifest that? Like, that's what I want.
Well, that's why Walt puts on his daily dose of happy, isn't it? It's exactly why you do it.
Yeah. And I think probably the biggest thing I had to come to grips with early on in order to even subtitle it Your Daily Dose of Happy was not everybody's going to be happy. Just not going to happen. But I could be there for the ones who want it. I could be there for the ones who are interested in it. And the best part is just by publishing it, I've just kind of relieved myself of the responsibility of how many people that's going to be. Because I can't do anything about, whether they're listening or not. It's up to them. At this point in day, here it is. It's yours if you want it. If you don't want it, okay, no problem.
But that's a great thing you're doing for the world. I mean, that somebody, to me, I think going back to what Anne Marie said earlier, somebody's going to hear that when they're ready to hear it. And when that affects one person, we all know that becomes exponential. We all know it's going to pay forward. They're going to mention it to somebody, and then somebody else is going to mention it to somebody, and it's going to go forward into the world. So you really are doing a great thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, that's part of why I like to do it is not just because I'm able to do that, but just by bringing people like you on and Anne Marie and my other co-hosts and other guests. I mean, I'm not only doing my thing to put stuff out there to make the world better, but everybody else is doing it too. And they're doing it through my podcast. Like, cool. Bring them on. Come on. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was not a big podcast person until the last 3 years. And my friend Kelly, yes, I have a best friend named Kelly. She turned me on to a couple, that really just blew my mind. And then my friend Trish turned me on to one that was really raucously funny. And it was kind of about history. Okay. And they would kind of make fun of history. And we even went to a live podcast one time. She took me so anyway, I really am understanding. I wouldn't be doing one myself if I didn't believe it was going to make a difference. I think it's just a growing platform that's going to become more and more important. And I think younger people I know all my kids, dig into it. And, so hopefully, we reach more and more people with our messages. That's the point.
Well, you were in the publishing business, particularly local publishing. And I think what we're kind of touching on here is the transition, the new inflection point in publishing, because we're moving away from the time and the era of the big publishers with the massive, the TV audiences and all that kind of stuff. Not that that's going away anytime soon, but it's shrinking slowly over time, and it's kind of dissolving into the same kind of thing we do in a podcast, where there's a niche message going out to a niche audience, and it's perfect to that audience, and audiences are finding new sources, and sources are finding new audiences, and it's a confusing place if you're somebody who's trying to actually make something happen in it.
Yes, I agree.
But if you're just going into it to just see what you find, so that it's not, so that you're not results oriented on it, so that you're not kind of tied down to, well, I've got to have X number of listeners with Y number of dollars and Z number of fabulous results that have come out of it. As long as you're not tied to that, then you are making that difference. You are, you're tying into the new model, so to speak. And somewhere in the next, I'm going to call it 5 years. I was about to say 10, but I think it's about 5 years. The people who have been doing the podcasting are going to realize that they have gotten to this new thing. I can't even tell you what the new thing is yet, but they've gotten to this new place, this new state of being where all of a sudden they're having an impact in a different qualitative way than they thought they would have. The reason I say that is because when I first started doing the podcasting, Anne Marie knows the story. I started because I needed my own help. I couldn't afford a coach. This is a great way to get coaching. It worked beautifully. and then it kind of evolved over time into what it has become today. But I never really thought it was going to turn to what it is today. I never thought about it in those terms. If you had asked me then, could you predict it? No, I couldn't have.
Right.
That's my way of saying, I don't know what this is going to turn into in 5 years. I don't know what these other podcasts are going to turn into. What I do know is that there is an overall thrust going on, an overall shift going on in the way messaging is transpiring via the internet, via online methods. And that method is turning into a different way of thinking and feeling and more importantly, interacting with other people. It's no longer the old model where, yes, I mean, I'm a host. I have guests. Most of the people who are listening don't know me personally, but it's not like the old model where, well, it's just the famous host. This is Phil Donahue. No, it's not like that anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Donahue isn't Phil Donahue anymore. I mean,
definitely not. Yeah. Yeah. I noticed, I had this experience last Thursday and it weirded me out and made me joyful all at the same time. I got in a rental car in Salt Lake City and I'm driving to the destination for the conference and I couldn't figure out the Bluetooth. It's always the first thing I do when I get in the rental car, sure. But I forgot to do it and drove out of the airport. And so I'm having to listen to the radio. I'm like, pushing buttons, trying to get some kind of radio station on. And I'm like, I don't remember the last time I listened to the radio. I literally, it could be a decade. I don't know. I don't remember. I always listen to my own music or a podcast. I never listen to the radio. And I think that's the case for people with TV. They don't watch channels 2, 4, and 5 anymore. They live stream. They don't read the newspaper. They read, electronic or, digital news. Mm-hmm. And it's epic. I mean, when Susan and I started our first online news site, Brentwood homepage, we were pioneers. Like there wasn't any online newspapers in the state of Tennessee. There may have been 2 others in the Southeast. We were winging it, totally winging it. We kept saying, we're selling air. We did not know what we were doing. We couldn't find a model. And then we did eventually find some other pioneers out there and we all helped each other through it. We ended up forming, a national organization, Local Independent Online News Publishers and Lion Publishers. And it became a really important part of my life. And I was coached. I began to coach, and so it really was, and I had a business coach. So, I mean, it's just been a theme in my life, this getting help and, going to the source of where people who know, have been where I want to go or walking alongside me and we're both trying to get there, whatever. But we got there, and I love Lion Publishers is still going. It's a great organization.
And it's very clear you're a great spokeswoman for exactly that. So I'm glad you're going into the space that you're going into. A couple things we got to do before we wrap up for today. First of all, you do have a book out called The Swipe Right Effect, which we really haven't touched on at all. But give people like a little quick, feel on that. And I presume they can find it in all the usual spaces, but just tell people a little bit about it.
It's available on Amazon. You can ask your local bookstores to order it for you if you prefer to do that. And I do. Please support the local bookstores. Swipe right, the Swipe Right Effect, the power to get unstuck. And, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but each chapter is my story, the piece of advice that was given to me. And I think I tell my story because I think you need to know why they said that to me, not just hear the piece of advice. Kelly was in a bad place. This is what Shania said to Kelly. And they are all really different stories. So, I mean, my story kind of carries throughout, but I have like the chapter on grief. I speak to a woman who lost her husband to a motorcycle accident. She's from South Africa, one of my Camino buddies. A woman who lost her husband to cancer, like 3 months. He was gone and everything that helped her, get past it. And then I have a dear friend who lost her son to suicide. So we really cover grief from 3 different angles in that chapter. And then like the forgiveness chapter, I talk about my conversation with Loretta, but I also present, a tool to use to walk through it. So every chapter is something new and from a different person. So you're not just hearing me, which I love. And then there's empowerment practices in each chapter that take the piece of advice and give you a way to practice it, give you a way to, walk away and do something, because that's what I want everybody to do, is choose to do something. The power. And that's why I said the power to get unstuck, because I believe the power is in the choice. So, I mean, it's out there. I also will be releasing the workbook, companion workbook to go with it. June 1, all of it's going to be June 1 with my coaching business and everything. So I'm excited to people to read it. And it's also and I have an audiobook too that I read myself, which was nerve-wracking. But it was,
the best way. Seriously, I actually think the best thing is when the author reads his or her own book.
Well, that was the feedback. I would not have done it had I not been. My oldest daughter was like, yeah, nonfiction authors, even Michelle Obama, read her own. And I was like, oh, I guess if Michelle can do it, I can. And Brene Brown, I love listening to her books, and she's so real and authentic. And that's what I wanted people to understand. I am real. I was broken and I got put back together. And I did a lot of things to get me there, and I authentically want the same for others. So I hope my book helps. And if I can do one-on-one or group coaching to make a difference in someone's life, I'll do that too.
I'm sure it's going to happen. I know that just from the way you described it. I mean, I know earlier we talked about how each chapter was based on individual conversation you had, but I love how you just now dove into one of them and talked about like the 3 different ways that you talked about the topic of grief. That's what I mean when I think about what's the book all about. That gave us a really good taste of that. So thanks for that.
Yeah, sure.
One more thing I want to ask you about, you just kind of touched on it for a moment there. Somebody who wants to consider having you as a coach, how do they reach you? How do they find out about you?
My website is ckcollins.co. And basically my process is going to be, they can sign up for a 1-hour call, a consultative call. We'll talk about stuff. If we think if I think I can help, I will. If I think I can't, I'll try to help them find somebody who can. Because I know I've been getting into this coaching space again, and I know a lot of coaches now, and I've got a mentor, I've got a coach. And, if I can't help them, I know that I can track somebody down, but I believe that, if I can work with somebody, it's going to make a difference for them.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, actually, all the best coaches I've ever interviewed have basically said the same thing, that I'm not a good fit for everybody. So if I'm not a good fit for the person, I want to find the person who is. That's essentially what you're saying, which is really good. Then one final thing I like to do at the end of each one of these episodes, I want to do with you, because like so many people who come onto this show, you give so much, not just here on the podcast, but on your own podcast and your writing and all the different ways that you do outreach when you were a publisher, all that kind of stuff. And there are many people who consume the content we put out that we never meet, we never see, and yet they benefit from it. And we talk about, not giving ourselves credit for stuff. That's something that kind of slips through the cracks pretty early. So I like to take a moment to say, on behalf of those people you've never met and you've never seen, thank you for all you've been putting out all these years. Thank you for what you're doing to help them now. Thank you for what you're going to be doing in the near future.
Oh, thank you so much. High five to you, Walt. And Anne-Marie, sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah. And those, when I do hear from people, it just fires me up. I get that Facebook message saying, I need to talk to you. You have opened the door and I need to walk through it. And that nothing fires me up more than that. But you're right. There's plenty of people who read it and I don't ever hear from them. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Anne-Marie. I've said this many times, but you personally helped me through stuff that I've been going through. And I just love the stuff that you bring up here. Anne-Marie doesn't say a lot during these interviews, but when she says something, it's like right on.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you, Walt.
You see what I mean, Kelly? I mean, like right on. She just nails it.
Yep, she did. Yeah.
That's
especially when you disappeared. She was right on it.
Yeah. Well,
she looked at me and she was like, I think he's gone.
That's why I felt comfortable to go fix it, because I knew Anne-Marie was going to cover it. Okay, we're good.
We did it though. We did it. All the technology worked.
And the technology let us do the whole show this time. That was a nice breakthrough as well. So we appreciate that. So thank you guys much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.